The PGA Tour headed down to Mexico for this weekend. It is the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba at El Camaleon in Playa del Carmen. Should be a pretty fun event because we got some good golfers in the field for this week. An interesting course as well. Some course history data to look at. Plenty to break down. So let's dive on in and get you set for some PGA DFS this week. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, we're out to El Camaleon for this weekend. How are you doing today?
Very, very evidently, Worldwide Technology is a successful company, according to Wikipedia. They've been around as long as I have, since 1990, but I cannot stop tilting over the fact that they are worldwide technology, as in two words for worldwide. It makes it sound like it's wide technology around the world, which is like kind of the same thing, but it's not. And as someone who's a managing editor and who's been in the trenches for the past 10 years editing content, I just can't let it go.
Yeah, I think that
it just bugs me.
So like if I were to do numberFire, specific example, the Late Round podcast by our boss, JJ Zachariason, has a hyphen in it because JJ understands punctuation and he doesn't want to be the round podcast. It's the Late Round podcast. Wide technology versus worldwide technology, that there's a difference there. So I think that this is a fair gripe. You have to pump out like 16 different pieces of content each week. Does your soul die every time you type out, not just because it's obnoxiously long, but also because of the lack of hyphen? You just type out the name of this event.
Yeah, I mean, golf events honestly are named very lengthy names at times. Sometimes they're just clunky, but again, like nothing against WWT, which is, apparently from Wikipedia, like what they're also known as. No offense to WWT, again, they're doing great. They don't have to worry about what I say. I kind of want to be a fly on the wall back in 1990 when they said like, yeah, this is the one, and it's not going to be confusing.
I mean, like, I'm sure it's a very in-depth conversation on their part. We're going to break things down from a DFS perspective, let you know who we are targeting for this week at El Camaleon. First, a quick reminder that NBA is back, so FanDuel's free over-under contest is back as well. It is simple. Head over to FanDuel.com/over-under and choose either over or under for each listed prop. You can make free picks for a chance to win a share of $5,000. All you got to do is make your picks. Head over to FanDuel before every NBA on TNT broadcast for your shot at a big payday. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details on that. Also, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, name it, you can find us there. We've got not just PGA, but also NFL podcasts, NBA, NHL, UFC, NASCAR, one final one coming up this week, all right here in the same place. So just subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Our recap of week number 8 is already posted for the NFL. Week 9, week 7 went backwards there. Week 9 preview podcast coming up on Thursday, 10 a.m. on the FanDuel YouTube page and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. After that, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review. Let's break down the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba. It is at El Camaleon Golf Course. It is 7,017 yards and a par 71. There are once again 132 golfers in the field for this week. The top 65 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds. So similar setup to the past to last week. Once again in play for this week at the Mayakoba. Brandon, we've been to this course before. No shot like data, but what stands out to you when you look back at what has happened here in the past?
We get past palm greens, which I think is one of the main takeaways. So we don't have as far as I know, any shot length data from any courses that have past palm greens. I also hear past palum, but I typically hear past palm more. So I'm just going to go with that pronunciation. Again, we don't have splits on it, so I won't say it very much after right now. I just wanted to point that out. Past winning scores here have hovered around 20 under. Past cut lines just under par. So you're going to need to be able to score if you want to contend for this week. It's a bit shorter than your usual par 71 among those on the PGA Tour's usual rotation. But a lot of the short yardage comes from some short par threes, basically under 160. So, but we also don't have any like long holes to add on distance. So it's kind of like feels like almost like a par 71 with just really short par threes. So even with that though, driving accuracy has popped up as basically, I don't want to say the key stat, but a very key stat for El Camaleon. And so that's kind of the angle that I'm taking. That's what we had last week. I think based on some of the notes that I've peeked at, we're on a lot of the same plays, probably from the fact that we're looking at guys who, or I don't want to say looking at golfers who drive the ball accurately. It's more we are targeting golfers who drive the ball accurately because their salaries probably don't really reflect their peak skill level, but they're in a better situation, so they're probably a little bit undersalaried. So that's kind of I'm looking at basically the same things as last week. So my key stats are strokes gained approach, driving accuracy plus strokes gained off the tee. Kind of don't account for too much of like each of those, but not really looking for distance, looking more for accuracy and birdie or better rate for this week. And I think that nothing really explains the difference between what I'm looking for this week is to know that like Abraham Answer gets a massive course boost this week, and someone like a Justin Thomas or Tony Finau kind of get knocked down a bit.
Right. And I think that looking back at last year, if I look at my numbers, what I'll do is I'll take the top 15 or so finishers, look at where they were for the full season in various stats and see what archetype did well. Strokes gained off the tee actually did perform pretty well there. It performed better than the other stuff, but I think that's just because like there were some decent golfers in that field. Driving accuracy definitely was better than the distance. Good drives gain is where I'm going to wind up going for my stat off the tee this week, just because again, I don't want to, focus on guys who just put it in the middle, like 5 yards down the fairway. So that's why I decided to go that way. I will say though that strokes gained off the tee is maybe a bit underrated for this week. So I would still, like Brandon is doing, factor that in because that can still count. But like, I think if you're choosing one or the other, I would lean towards accuracy, obviously based on like, if you go to the Data Golf is like a spider graph that shows which stats matter most relative to where they're usually at. And accuracy is just like off the chart, basically, for this week compared to other weeks.
Off the spider.
Off the spider, yeah. Spider's going nuts for that one. So I think that for this week, we should bump up guys who may otherwise be penalized. And I think that's important to know, too, when you're looking at birdie numbers, because sometimes guys may not make birdies because they're on courses that are longer. That may be more forgiving this week. So I want to emphasize birdies are better gained because it does matter a lot for scoring, but I also don't want to punish too much guys who may not get a lot of birdies because of a lack of distance. I think that's the key thing I'm trying to keep in mind because like I care a lot about birdies and I want to make sure I'm not overemphasizing it for guys who may get a bump up this week as a result of the lack of distance at the course.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing I said, but just differently, like, which is like, totally worth like kind of sticking on because it's kind of a hard concept sometimes where it's like, yeah, some of these golfers don't really look as good as others, these guys who are shorter hitters, accurate hitters, but you just got to remember like the way that golf is played is that they will rotate to courses, and most courses, I'd say like 9 out of 10 courses favor or I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like they favor longer hitters. So like 80-90% of these guys' samples is just at courses that don't really fit them as well as this week. So like their long-term data is going to look worse. And that's why you take advantage of these situations whenever there's a course that sets up well for shorter hitters.
So as mentioned, we've been here for a while. We've been to Mayakoba plenty of times. Let's dive into past history here and talk about a guy who measures up well even at courses that don't fit him, and which should make us love him even more this week. That is Abraham Answer. He will be a major talking point this week. We'll talk about him in the betting markets as well, but he has a long history at El Camaleon. What have you seen from him here in this event?
Yeah, so he's my favorite process-based play to begin with. Before I looked at really salary or betting odds or anything, I was like, okay, Answer's rating out number one in my stats model for what I'm looking for this week. So he fits the course, but he's also done well at the course, which we don't always have that overlap, but we have it with Answer. He missed the cut here in 2015 and was 55th in 2016, but ever since, he has finished top 25 in 4 straight years, including 3 top 12 finishes. So, no wins, not like the third, second, fourth, kind of elite numbers, but top 12s. I mean, you can't really write those off either. We don't have shot link data, but we do have at least fairways gained, greens and regulation gained, things like that from Fantasy National. And Answer ranks 10th among golfers with data at this course in greens and regulation gained. He is 3rd in fairways gained, which is pretty much exactly what you would expect for Abe Answer at a course like this, especially with the finishes being good. So we would pretty much easily be able to say that he has got good tee to green numbers. And if the finishes are that good, probably putts pretty well at this course as well. So I would presume that Answer just winds up chalky. I thought that before his odds shifted. We'll just kind of contextualize it. He opened at 27-1 and he's now 15-1.
He's the favorite.
He became the favorite. His salary is, I will say, only 11,400, which is low for a favorite. So presumably Answer catches a ton of chalk. What are your thoughts on him this week?
Well, I think for cash games, you just go there. I think that he makes a lot of sense there. It's mostly a question for tournaments. And I think that for tournaments, we have guys we can pivot to. Like maybe it's Guy. Victor Hovland, I think, is a really logical pivot off of Abraham Answer for this week because he is another guy who can put the ball in the fairway. He has good approach play. He can make birdies. Not as good of a putter as Answer. And he did win here last year. So we know he can measure up well at the course. I'm just curious, maybe this is me just trying to cope with the fact that Answer is going to be super popular. Like, does the fact that Hovland won last year draw away some popularity? What it probably does is just ensure that they're both very chalky, which is disappointing because I think that they're the two guys I would like most here. Maybe that means we should go Justin Thomas, but like you said, this is not the best course fit for him, but he's a very good golfer. So I guess I'm kind of conflicted on how to view the top just because there is a salary gap. I'd like to say that 600 between Answer and Thomas, and the salary gap between him and Hovland too. But I can tell you with a good amount of certainty that Answer will be popular, and with almost an equal amount of certainty that Hovland will be too. And that kind of just bums me out.
Yeah, they'll both be popular. Right now, it's early, so these will change. But according to fansharesports.com, Abraham Answer leads this field in tags. He's got 7. Nobody else has more than 5. And I will say that the percentage of the salary it takes to roster Answer on FanDuel is even lower than on some other sites. So factoring in that aspect, I would say Answer is probably a lock to be at least 35% rostered.
Yeah.
If not 40%. So again, I think he's the best play of the week. I think a lot of people will view that as well. So he's a lock for our head-to-head for this week. As far as tournaments go, we have other places to pivot. And with golf being what it is, I'm fine missing out because if Answer wins, you're gonna be contending with a ton of other lineups. If Answer doesn't win, which is statistically more likely, I have him at about 7%. So, you kind of want to play the odds there, and that's, I think, the right way to go.
And it's the unfortunate reality of golf, for PGA DFS, which stinks. So, we'll deal with that for sure. But cash games, yes. I think we can talk about some other ways to maybe use him without being, full chalk in the bookmaker section. Let's first talk about Billy Horschel, though. Horschel, another guy who's been coming to Mayakoba for a while, and It's come with good results. His past 3 trips from Horschel have been a 21st place finish, an 8th, and a 5th. Across 22 total rounds at El Camaleon, Horschel ranks second in greens and regulation gain per round at 1.6. He's also getting an average of 0.6 fairways per round, so he can navigate the fairways. His approach seems solid. The form for Horschel is scattershot as he's been playing more in Europe recently, but he did win the BMW PGA Championship there. He was 9th at the Tour Championship on the American side, so we don't have a ton of recent data on a Horschel, but he's been competent in the recent data, and his record here is very good. Problem is the salary ain't cheap. He's $10,400, so where are you at in Billy Horschel this week?
Someone who definitely is like deserving of a closer look. I think that salary's fine, honestly. I just kind of like other names right around there too. Aaron Wise is popping for me. If I can say Matt Fitzpatrick at 10-8, I would say him. Taylor Gooch, our guy, or at least my guy. I don't want to put him on you. Sergio, 10,000. So we have a lot of options here. I just don't know if Horschel is going to be the best of them for me, just because I see some other like better values. If I combine recent stats, if I combine course fit, if I combine long-term form, I don't think he does enough. So I'm kind of okay just being out on Horschel.
Yeah. Love a good Gooch. We'll talk about him in current form. Varying on that. Okay with that for sure. There are other guys in that range too. So I respect what Horschel has done, respect that he's a good course fit, and am okay missing out on him for this week as well. So let's talk to you about Emiliano Grillo. Grillo, $9,100. He had that like crazy spurt back in the spring/summer where Grillo was like just racking up good finishes. But he's got history here, and he's got a lot of it. So what do you see with Grillo in the past at El Camaleon?
Yeah, I mean, so Grillo's been great here, which I know I don't really need to say, but like really great, especially for a golfer with a value salary. He's finished 10th, 9th, 15th, 41st, and 8th. So that's 4 top 15s and 2 top 10s in 5 starts. We don't have ShotLink again, but we have those traditional stats. And Grillo, according to Fantasy National, is 3rd in greens and regulation gained, 13th in fairways gained among golfers with data here. So presumably he would have good tee to green numbers. And that's actually kind of a safe assumption for Grilo anyway, especially if finishes are good, because we know he doesn't really do it with the putter. There are always questions with that putter for Grilo, but it is a rare surface. And I, again, don't have a whole lot of data to dig into, and you can't always just base it off of greens and regulation versus like putts per round. Presumably because it's an uncommon surface, it kind of levels the playing field a bit. I don't want to make that assumption, but it's also hard to look at Grillo knowing that he's got just one of the better tee to green games in a field like this. You put him in a full, really strong field, that tapers off a bit, but the irons can always be just red hot for Grillo. So I like him. There's always a concern because of the putter. Is he doing enough for you for this week?
So what I want to ask you is what's your sentiment on the range around 9,000? Because I think there are several names I like down there. And I don't know, like if I'm just like, oh, talking myself into them because I need to save salary somewhere. But I think there's some guys down there who are pretty lively. So I think that's the drawback is I can get access to guys with decent tee to green numbers who are not as nightmarish on the greens. That's kind of my hang up with Grillo. What's your thoughts on that range? Are you okay with it or no?
Love it.
Okay.
I had multiple golfers right at 9,000 sort of pop up for me, and I'll name them because it's like kind of hard. So Charlie Hoffman at 92, I like. Relo at 91, I like. Ian Poulter, Brendan Todd at 9,000, I like. Harold Varner, 8,800, I like.
You
Kevin
listed 3 of
Streelman.
my 6 player picks within the past half minute.
So yeah, it's a very, very good range. And not only that, we also have some golfers in the 7,000 range who are a little bit appealing. So it's
Ches,
really
basically, or someone
Ches,
else.
Ryan
Okay.
Moore.
Oh yeah.
So Chez is 76. Ryan Moore's at 78. You can kind of do a lot of stuff with if you're willing to go Chez plus, we'll even say Grillo or Varner. That opens up a ton. So you want to talk about being able to play Abe Answer because you really think he's like gonna win, or you think he's like a lock for a top 10? Because if he's 35-40% rostered and he finishes 8th, that doesn't mean that those lineups are dead at all.
Right.
Like that's not what we're saying. We're talking about sheer win equity versus the popularity numbers, but you can differentiate and still play Answer like you said.
Yeah. We'll talk about ways to do so again in the bookmaking section. I think that going back to Grillo, I just like a couple guys more, and one of them might actually, I guess, I don't know. Let's talk about Carlos Ortiz first, because we are legally obligated to talk about every person from Mexico on this podcast, as they are at El Camaleon. We talked about Answer earlier. Carlos Ortiz from Guadalajara. Homecoming narrative is fully on his side here. And he's played well here in the past. It's not like, oh, we have to talk about these guys because they're in there at their home country. There's actually a legit reason to talk about them here. Ortiz first played El Camaleon back in 2014. He finished 9th in that one. More recently, Ortiz was runner-up in 2019, finished 8th last year. And some of that is likely due to putting because his peripheral numbers, like the greens and regulation numbers, are not going to blow you away. And that is concerning because Ortiz is not the world's best putter. He's $8,900. He can hit fairways. He's a good approach player. Are you checking out Carlos Ortiz this weekend?
I was. Let me take a closer look here. Maybe if I spell it right. So yeah, I mean, he kind of pops, but there are still enough question marks. He's not hyper accurate. We know that, like, we know the putter's just kind of fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you put him up against those guys I just named, right in the 9,000 range. I don't know if he stands out, and he really doesn't enough to me because in my helper on numberFire, I have like 5 or 6 names in this tier, and Ortiz isn't one of them. So it's less to do with the fact that, like, I would talk you out of playing him, and just more that I can talk myself into others more easily.
Yeah, I would say HV3 I like more.
Yeah.
Adam Schenk is not bad. He's 86, a little lower.
Yeah.
Don't mind him. Poulter, I like. Not my guy, but I like him.
I like him.
The Streel boy, I think I like more than
Yeah.
Carlos Ortiz.
Yeah.
Scott Stallings, good vibes from last week. Hoffman. So like, it's a lot of guys I'd rank above him. So I think he's fine, but I it's kind of like Grillo, where I think I like those guys more.
It's just kind of one of those fields where there aren't a whole lot of plays you look at and you're like, no, this is the guy. Like these two are the guys by far. It's more, yeah, I like these 5 or 6 names in this tier. And as much as Answer is like the guy, he's not so far out ahead of like a Victor Hovland or even like a Scotty Scheffler for me that I'm like, yeah, I'm not like, I have to play Abe Answer no matter what.
Right.
So this is probably a week where it's going to feel a little bit underwhelming with my overall analysis, because it's going to be figure out who is going to be popular and just play the guys around them, because you can do that at literally every salary tier,
including that value range. So let's move now to the current form section, talk about some guys in the 10,000 range who could be of interest this week. One of them is Sergio Garcia, $10,000 for Garcia. Obviously, we know the tee to green numbers are going to be amazing at all times. Question mark is the putter, but he's overcome that quite a bit recently. So what do you see with Garcia here at 10,000?
Yeah, I like Sergio. I'm getting better with playing him. Seems like these Ryder Cup guys from the European team have just played better since the Ryder Cup. I don't know how long that'll last.
Is it like a tough loss narrative? What are we going with here?
I think it's hey man, these guys love golf and they wanna win in 2 years. And I think
that's a really long name for a narrative. I don't like it.
I think that they're gonna be dedicated every single day for the next 2 years to get better narrative.
It's a really long narrative, and I hate it.
Try harder. Hey, I mean, look, we get Garcia. if we could bet on, and I hope we someday get this, bet on who leads the field in strokes gained tee to green. Of course, we need shot link this week, but like he'd be a good bet any single week. Doesn't matter what the field is to lead the field tee to green. He is 7th in strokes gained total over the past 20 rounds, according to Data Golf's True Strokes Gained query. 2nd off the tee in that sample. Not necessarily accurate, but we know that if he can just kind of drive the ball well, he's going to have the irons, and that he can get close to the cup on any wedge or iron shot. Whether he makes it remains to be seen, but it's been a little bit better. He finished 25th at the CJ Cup, missed the cut at the Sanderson Farms when his putter was really bad, which is still within the range of outcomes for Garcia. But the salary of $10,000 is like, it almost kind of accounts for the fact that he could just erupt in a negative sense, and doesn't quite account for how he can erupt in a positive sense, which is definitely to have win upside in a field like this. He was 14th at the Tour Championship, 6th at the BMW Championship back in August, September. This like is kind of the time of year where you're like, what's recent form for me? And we're going to go through that again in January and February, but it's not hyper recent, but we know long-term Serge is just like really good for this salary for this field. So I like him. We haven't talked yet specifically about like the upper 9s and low 10s. I know we talked about Billy Horschel, but what are your thoughts on Garcia and how he fits with this?
Why don't we talk Taylor Gooch first?
Yeah,
talk about that
let's do that. That's even better, man. That's great.
Okay, great transition. Also, great transition. But as I enter my Alicia Keys voice to say that this Gooch is on fire because Taylor Gooch is going nuts recently. The past 3 events for Taylor Gooch since the start of swing season have been finishes of 4th, 11th, and 5th. And that's not because he's putting well. He has actually not gained more than 2 strokes in any event, any of those 3 events. He actually lost pointing at the Shriners, still finished top 11 in all 3. That's really good. The approach has been the big key here for Gooch. That's always reassuring. The one area he hasn't really excelled is off the tee, though I'm not sure if that'll correct, as accuracy is not like the big thing for Gooch. So that's maybe one downside, but I still think he's very interesting this week. I prefer him over Horschel. We talked about earlier. He's in the same range. If we're looking at Gooch relative to Garcia, pretty tough discussion. And the other thing is, if we're talking Gooch, like how much rope can I get here to like stretch this tier? Because Aaron Wise, I think, is really fun. He's 10-6, but a $600 gap is a lot between Garcia and Wise. $300 between Gooch and Wise is still a decent amount, but like, I think Gooch is in play in this range, despite there being guys around him I like a lot. How do you view Gooch and Garcia and this range in general?
Love Taylor Gooch. It's tough because for us, we kind of consider the upper range like 10,000 and above. So it's hard for someone in the low 10,000s to be like a standout play relative to the superstars whenever we have them. But he was in the conversation for that. So he's just an other to consider for me. But if I looked at like 10-5 and below, he would probably stand out. I want to say maybe the most among this tier. It sounds like we're both in on Aaron Wise, both in on Gooch. There's a case for Horschel. There's always still a case for Cam Tringali. I like Sergio Garcia. It's a really good range.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting conflicted though, because we have 3, 4, 5 names in this tier with viability, and we also have like 6 names right around 9,000. So you could play golfers just in these 2 tiers, or you can play like the $7,000 guys and get back up to 2 of the studs. So it's a tough one for me for this week. So is Gooch your number 1 in this tier?
Okay. Are we counting Wise or no?
We can.
I would put Wise above him. And then I'd probably go Gooch. And then Sergio. And then Tringali after that. Tringali versus Sergio is pretty close to me, though.
I would, I have Gooch and Wise basically the same. I just have Gooch a little bit higher due to the salary.
Yeah.
So I won't take that bet because that just means that Taylor Gooch will have fewer FanDuel points than Aaron Wise if I do.
You want to curse him?
Because I mean, I did get one last week, but
do we have two? We had just one.
Yeah, we had Danny McCarthy and Russell Knox, which you won. And then we had Patrick Reed and Mito, which I won because Patrick Reed almost won.
Whoops.
And Patrick Reed wore some short pants too.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Strange choice. They were in a rainforest this week, so I wonder if he'll double down. Kind of dig it. Yeah, I think that this range is pretty good though.
So what's your initial thought on, like, let's say you're building even 10 tournament lineups.
Yeah.
Are you going to stick to one of the, like, a balanced or a stars and scrubs, or are you going to mix and match, which then gets you like all over the place over 10 lineups?
Very obvious route. Other route. So if we have 40%, let's say, I don't know, 20% use both. So 20% of 40% is something, I don't want to do math. That's a smaller number. So I think that the way that I want to cut down the answer popularity is by pairing him with Hovland and competing against the lineups that have both. And then I can pepper that 9,000 range we like a lot, still get back up to Gooch if I want, or get back up to Sergio, et cetera, and feel good about that lineup. So that's my initial build right now is Hovland, answer, pepper that 9,000 range, and get back up to the 10,000 for the third guy. I think that works really well. I've got one in front of me that I like a lot. I think it works. What about you?
Yeah. So Answer and Hovland specifically make up like an abnormal amount of win equity. JT doesn't really rate out that well for me this week. He's like 3%. I have Hovland about 5.5% and Answer at about 7%. So it's a pretty big jump. So my instinct for a single entry, or I'll say for a cash game at least, is still to try to get Hovland and Answer together. For a single entry, I still think I need to avoid Answer. If it's multi-entry, I could probably try to be at about 50% Answer, but make sure that I'm getting extra weird. But I think with golf, it's probably even better just to look at like, and you don't have to actually do this. Like, you don't have to run your own sort of like popularity projections or anything, but it's enough if you have like one golfer who's like 5%. You don't have to roster every golfer under 10%. And you don't have to like, you can look at a sort of a multiplier situation as opposed to your total draft percentage. So
aggregate roster rate, or the multiple
like
is you phrase it correctly. Yes.
Yeah. Like, so like you can have a chalky lineup and then have one really low, like unpopular pivot. And like that is something I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have thought that was different enough, but I think that works in a week like this.
Yeah, I think so too, especially because like those two guys are really fun and I just kind of want to get there. So this is me just coping and justifying that for sure. Now, I talked about having a lot of guys in that 9,000 range. One of those guys right now is Harold Varner III. You're talking about him in the current form section. Why?
Because he's been good. Any other questions?
Elaborate. It's not a question, it's a command.
He has like enough, I think, course form where we really could have jammed him in if we were lacking, because he's got 2 top 25s and 4 made cuts and 5 starts. But we have enough guys who have form here that we talked about some other guys. But the recent form is even better anyway. He's actually third in the field in true strokes gained over the past 20 rounds, according to Data Golf. He is no worse than 13th in any of the strokes gained stats outside of off the tee, where he's still 55th, which is fine. Varner's recent finishes are 32nd at the CJ Cup, 11th at the Sanderson Farms, and 16th at the Fortinet. The putting is trending up. That can be a sign of like, hey, this is regression is going to come, because we know Harold Varner historically is not a good putter, but it seems like it's trending up a little bit more long term. And so if I'm going to still get good tee to green numbers and the chance that he's become a better putter, that has a lot of appeal, especially at a course where he's, made 4 or 5 cuts and at a salary of 8,800, like you can't really hate on a made cut with top 25 upside. So I like Varner a good bit. Sounds like you're in on him too. What are your thoughts overall on him?
Yeah, so talking about the putting, you were talking about how it's been getting better long term. So I have the past 100 rounds here based on the data at Fantasy National across all surfaces. And in that metric, he ranks 47th in this field. That may not sound great, but when you have the good tee to green play that he has, 47th can do a lot from a baseline of whatever he was previously. So I think that bodes well for Varner. I think that he is one of the guys who stands out in this tier that I like a lot. So very much in on Harold Varner III for this week. Let's talk about Russell Henley. Henley, the past 2 weeks, has lost 6.4 strokes putting. Despite those, he has still finished 21st and 25th. One is in a no-cut event, so keep that in mind. But that means the ball striking for Henley is nuts right now, and it is. He's gained at least 5 on approach in 3 of the past 4 measured events and 5 of the past 8. This is a non-distance course. That's good for Henley. He ranks 9th in good drives gained, 2nd in approach. The problem with Henley is that unlike Varner, his putting is not trending up. It's getting bad, and it's not fluky. He can definitely struggle there, but he's also not as hideous as some other guys we tend to play who are good ball strikers. So I'm interested in Henley in this tier because of the ball striking and hoping that the putting stabilizes a bit. Issue I'm running into is we just listed off a lot of guys who do similar stuff to Henley whose salaries are about $600 lower. That's the hang up I have with Henley right now is if I want to get a good ball striker, bad putter, I can spend less from a salary perspective to get them. So what are your thoughts on Henley relative to the guys in the tier below him?
Love Henley. He's one of my player picks.
Yep.
I think he's better at doing what we're talking about. I think the salary will probably leave him a little bit overlooked because he's in that sort of that like weird, is he, even if you're building a balanced lineup, it can be hard to get there. Should probably be above and below that. I've been wanting to do this for like a year, and I finally for some reason waited until NBA and NFL overlap, but I included Z scores in my spreadsheet, so it looks at like your standard deviations over the field. So it's not just percentiles, which you could outdrive the field by 50 yards, and it won't really show you rating out that much better. But shout out to Bryson there, I guess. But using that, Henley is actually the second best value play for me with a combo of long-term form, hole by hole analysis, and like the sort of better method of looking at stats. He's the second best value for me in this field behind only Abe Answer. So I'm not going to overlook I'm willing to overlook the putting to get access to someone who just has like the absolute potential to pace this field in stroke gain approach, even though we wouldn't know that he does. But when we came back from the COVID layoff, I said Russell Henley was basically JT. So I'll just play Russell Henley instead of JT.
Play Russell Henley, leave $2,400 on the table. I think that's the way I'm asking you to play things with bobblehead. If that's okay with you, I think that is a fair trade-off.
Hey man, I'll play both. That way, I just it's like an inside the lineup train.
No, but doesn't work.
It's like the only way to mini stack and golf, or like the stack and golf, basically.
It doesn't work that way. You choose one or the other. You can choose. You can use JT at full salary, or leave $2,400 on the table with Henley. No other route for doing this. Let's take a look at what the bookmakers saying about this event. Abraham Answer is the favorite. He's 15-1. Just ahead of Justin Thomas, 16-1. Victor Hovland is 19-1. Then there is a big drop down to Tony Finau at 30-1. Scotty Scheffler and Aaron Wise are both 32-1. Then we get to Patrick Reed and Brooks Koepka at 33-1. Tyrrell Hatton and Billy Horschel are 35-1. Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Will Zalatoris round out the top group. They are 36, 37, and 38-1, respectively. So Answer open at 27-1. JT was 10-1. We've seen a massive shift since then. We talked about roster construction. We talked about the way we want to, potentially get in both Answer and Hovland, at least for me, or something else. My question to you, though, is, are we too low on JT, or are we being appropriate?
I don't think we're too low on JT because this is not the sort of best situation for him. Like it's not. It sets up a lot better for other golfers. Now he was 12th here last year. So this is kind of this goes back to process-wise. Answer is the best play. Hovland's the second best play. Game theory-wise, for like your tournaments, JT is still a great play. I don't think either of us would say that JT's a bad play for like tournaments. We're just saying that from I don't even want to say floor in any DFS sport, specifically not golf, but like
floor is lava, baby. Don't say it.
The low end expectation for Answer and Hovland should be considered to be higher than Justin Thomas, which sounds weird because Thomas has so much name value.
Yeah,
but that's kind of ignorant to how good Abe Answer has been, and also like we know Hovland's great and he just won here last year, so I don't think either of us are too low. It's just he's not as good of a cash game play as the other two.
Do you consider Thomas to be a good pivot off those two for tournaments?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Single entry, you just got one for the entire slate. Are you considering JT for that lineup?
Yeah, I would play JT over Answer in a single entry, and everyone else has a single entry. Yeah, I would do that.
Okay, I think.
Honestly, the bigger question. It's good. Sorry.
No, good. You're good.
I was going to say the bigger question is like you were rattling off a lot of names that like people know, and we're probably getting a lot of people like maybe listening who are playing NFL and they're just kind of in a DFS swing and they're like, hey, I know, and it's not like a patronizing thing, but it's like, hey, I've seen Scotty Scheffler, I've seen Tony Finau, these guys at the Ryder Cup, Patrick Reed, Zalatoris. I still can't believe he was runner up at the Masters, but like these guys might like there's nothing to say that these guys won't win, and we're really fixated right now on Answer, Hovland, and Thomas. So I have like no issues pivoting away from Answer in a single entry because we have JT, but we also have I like Scotty Scheffler. I think Patrick Reed is very much in play. So I don't know. Did any of these other names scare you for like being kind of, because we can't play on them all, so we're gonna have to cross off names. Does it scare
not afraid
you?
of Brooks? Not really afraid of Finau.
Okay,
that could be stupid, but I'm not really afraid of them. Scheffler, I think I'm less afraid of than you, maybe. Not really that afraid of Reed. Not super afraid of Hatton. Okay. So honestly, like, no.
Okay.
Not really too bad. Okay. No. I'm just like looking at it now. I'm like looking through them one by one. Like, I actually do think that like if I'm gonna pivot off Answer / Hovland, it'll be for JT. And probably still having one of those guys in there. Because like that's the one way, again, to make yourself unique is you take the 40% that have Answer and trim it down to the people who have Answer plus whoever.
Yeah. So then it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement where it's Answer, Hovland, JT are the top three in that order.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in a single entry format, I'm okay with JT. I don't know if you answered that question.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then, actually, honestly, like rethinking this really quickly. Sorry to cut you off, but like I think the best for single entry might just be going Thomas Hovland, because if our baseline for Answer is 40%, where our baseline for Hovland is 25-30, we're trimming it down another 10 percentage points. So maybe Hovland, Thomas, really high up there. Maybe that's the way to go for single entry instead.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Okay.
It just, again, and like it's golf is particularly hard to talk about because it's like we're saying Abe Answer best play, don't play him. Like
right. Like we never say that with I was gonna say Todd Gurley. I don't know why Todd Gurley came to my head. Like, what year is it?
I miss the days where we just played.
What year is it? 2019? That was 2 years ago. Gosh, things change so fast. But we wouldn't be saying that with a running back. If they're the best play, they're the best play. In golf, it's different because it's so high variance.
Yeah, I mean, so Answer is again my model's favorite. I have him at 7.2% to win, 36.3% to top 10. Let's just say he's 36.3% rostered. Like that's still less than half the time that he finishes top 10.
Right.
So it's going to feel scary unless people are like, Abe Answer's a bad play. But if you are convinced by the reasons we like him, I still think that this week specifically, Answer is going to catch a lot of chalk.
Right. Exactly. So we talked a lot about movement with Answer. Anybody else standing out to you in terms of movement for this week?
My guy, who Jim hates apparently, Russell Henley, 55-42.
Well, no, I don't hate him. How dare you? I love
Harold Varner, 90
Russell
to 60.
Thomas.
Yeah. You said Thomas Hovland too, and I was like, Thomas Hovland sounds like Victor's like younger, shyer brother who's like still is like polite and stuff, but
Mm.
probably just is a little bit less outgoing in the
Vic
interviews.
Hovland is a manager at a hardware store who fires an employee when they're late one day.
Yeah, I could see that. Now I'm off track. Harold Varner 90 to 60, Russell Knox 80 to 65, Carlos Ortiz 80 to 70, Kevin Strowman 100 to 70, Joel Damon 120 to 80, and Adam Hadwin 100 to 80.
And Varner 90 to 60 sounds like it's a numbers correction on FanDuel's part, where he was a lot longer than he was in other books.
Yeah.
But I think that given the correlation between salaries and odds, I feel like that led to Varner being undersalaried for FanDuel. Just kind of further bolstering the fact that he's a little bit lower than you would expect him to be for how good he is. Speaking of which, let's talk about lower salary golfers with good odds. Who stands out to you there? Is Harold Varner III on that list?
He is, and he leads
Wow.
among golfers with salaries at or below 9,000. Varner has the best win odds on FanDuel Sportsbook at 60 to 1, followed by Russell Knox at 65. Carlos Ortiz, Kevin Strowman are 70. Brendan Todd, 75. And then a big tier at 80 is Jonathan Vegas, Ian Poulter, Rory Sabatini, Taylor Pendreth, Adam Hadwin, and Joel Damon.
We like a lot of those guys. Taylor Pendreth popped last week, obviously, out at Bermuda. He's 80 to 1. We've got the honeymoon narrative in his favor. He's currently on his honeymoon with his now wife while golfing, which doesn't sound like the most romantic honeymoon, I guess. Like, hey, let's do work. Are you into him given the performance last week, or are we okay avoiding him given the wealth of other options in this range?
Doesn't really fit what I'm looking for as much as the other guys. We have so many names, and if I can just kind of take an easy fade on someone who just sort of peaked last week, I'm okay doing that. So that's the route I will go with Pendreth, who is, and the reason I don't like him last week because I don't remember if I saw his odds moved or just looking in the salary tier, but like he nukes it. He's not very accurate, so he still did well last week despite that, but. Again, not really what I'm looking for this week.
I will note that our narrative team works behind the scenes here at numberFire. Big team, 16 or 30 people, wide range. They will be building their own shot length data for this course in order to measure Taylor Pendreth and see what the impact of the honeymoon narrative is. So just to let you know, we have people on it. Our team,
don't worry,
deep team. Someone accused me on Twitter of having a team of interns. I've never had interns in my life. I wish I did. But I do have interns on the narrative side, and they're working on this. 16 to 30 people exclusively working on narratives to find out what the impact of a honeymoon narrative is.
It's such a big team that you have to just you can only ballpark it. You just can't know.
Yeah, I can't. But I don't manage them. I just tell them what to do, and got someone else whose own lone job is to manage the narrative team. Sorry.
Yeah. We don't. I don't even talk to the interns. They just send me all the stats. They run all my simulations.
Yeah, I've never done work in my life. First time I've seen these words. Like who is Joaquin Neiman? I've never heard of this guy, but somehow my interns were talking about him. So I guess I'll look it up. But they are on it, just so you know. Somehow the 16 to 30 people missed Chris Conley having a baby or his wife having a baby. Well, didn't get me on there, but. I don't know.
Well, the team was 31 to 70 before. We just had to make some cuts because
they missed the Chris Conley baby narrative. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So step it up, interns. Let's go. Again, there are no interns. Please don't take this seriously. We treat our people well.
Yeah, we do a lot of work here. And Ches Reavie also, I glossed over him at 90 to 1. He's 7,600, so he's probably going to be a little bit popular, but I think he's still a good play.
Maybe we'll talk about Ches later on. Before we do that, though, quick note on weather for this week. No wind this week, thankfully. Last week was a nightmare, so that's good. Rain chances are basically like it's just a constant threat because they're in a rainforest. So, like, what do you expect? It could rain. It happens. I just wouldn't worry about it too much because there's not a lot of wind. So, let's move to our player picks here for the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba. Blah, blah, blah. Brandon, who are you targeting this week over on FanDuel?
Abe Answer. He's a lock for cash game. What?
Abe is the answer.
I've never heard that before.
Wow. Innovative. My interns thought of that one.
Answer is the best play, process-based play of the week. He's my model's favorite to win, 7.2%. It's pretty sizable. I was kind of astonished at his odds opening up at 27 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. I was worried that my model just was completely busted, but no, it worked out well, which is good assurance to see. Best stats, he's first in my stats model. Home country, good results here, sets up well, golfing well. Is an absolute lock for me in our head-to-head.
Yep.
No question about that. The questions just come in if you're playing like a tournament.
Yep. So I think that answers my fair play too. Just it's very easy. If I were to pitch you on Hovland as far as why I think that he's a good guy to include as well as being like a, another way to cut down on the answer roster rate by using both. Hovland ranks 7th in good drives gained. He's 5th in approach, 2nd in birdies or better gained. Not as good of a putter as answer, but also not bad there. Won here last year, good form. So I would say Hovland is 2.
Hovland
JT
is the
3.
answer.
No, it doesn't work. Vic is my pick. How about that?
Sure.
Victor is the victor.
That's good.
Okay, we'll work on this.
But yeah, it's those three for us in that order.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. So who else do you like here in this upper range?
A name that I think maybe you said once, Matt Fitzpatrick. 10,800 had some interesting shirt choices last week.
You said they were bad. He had like a Bermuda shirt. Let me clarify. So he had a Bermuda shirt that was like dark blue in the background and had like some like palm trees on it, some tasteful palm trees that were light blue. I thought it was a good shirt. I'm not a huge like Hawaiian shirt guy or like Bermuda shirt dude, but like it looked good. I thought it was a fine shirt.
I thought you were going to clarify because you said that I said it. I don't like the shirt. It works for him, but it works for very few people. So I wouldn't wear it. It works for him. That still can mean that I don't really like the shirt.
You're wrong. It's okay.
But I'm going to play him as sort of a pivot if I can get there. Fitzpatrick, 10,800. Finished 30th at Bermuda last week. We don't know how he got there because we didn't have shot link data, but we know that the long-term form is good. We know that he's good on shorter courses that reward accuracy. He's in the 87th percentile in fairways gained relative to this field over the past 50 rounds, according to Fantasy National, and in the 88th percentile in birdie or better rate gained.
I think Fitz works. Definitely okay with him. My preferred option in this range, though, is Aaron Wise. We talked about before, but we need birdies, and Aaron Wise gets birdies. Even with the bad putting, he ranks 4th in the field in birdies or better gained. That's because Wise is good in both ball striking categories. Wise has put that to good use at this course. He has a 10th in 2018, runner-up last year in his ledger. Last time we saw Wise, he finished 5th in the CJ Cup, gained 4.3 strokes in approach. He was 8th at the Shriners before that and hasn't missed a cut since April. So I think Wise makes a ton of sense at 10-6. I have an issue getting back up to him if I go with the answer Hovland lineup. I think the other route is going with
Hovland. Well,
I mean, if I use Chad, I could.
Yeah.
But like, I think the other route is going with like just JT and then jumping down to Wise and avoiding both answer and Hovland. I'm okay with that as well as a build.
Yeah. It's a good like theory strategy based build. So that's what golf comes down to.
Yep. So let's move down to the mid-range. What you got there?
I have. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask me about Aaron Wise, so I have my notes up and I'll send you all my tabs that I have open for some.
So rude.
I have Russell Henley. I think he's a great play at 96. I think that if I start like with two of the studs, go down to Ches, I can get back up to Henley, and I'm really cool with that. It's a less than driver course, which is always good for someone like Henley. He's in the 98th percentile in adjusted strokes gained over the past year. You know, despite being one of those guys who plays better at courses that just are shorter, 90th percentile in strokes gained approach adjusted for field strength and recency over the past year. You got to love that. Hard to beat that. Some guys do, but not many. Very good with hitting fairways, 87th percentile over the past 50 rounds. Has gained 12 and a half strokes from approach over his past 8 rounds, when he finished 21st and 25th, despite losing 6.4 strokes putting in those. So if he putted decently, we'd be looking at someone coming in with like top 15s, top 10s. Henley's a great
Not even
play for.
decently, just like not terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was guilty of doing what I told myself not to do at the beginning of the podcast. Like, hey, don't penalize guys for not super long, for not having great birdie numbers. They're going to a non-distance course. I think I kind of did that with Henley before when I was talking about him. I like him, but I think I should like him more than I was talking about before. One guy I do like though in this range, Mito Pereira. We talked about him last week with him versus Patrick Reed. Now Mito's back in the mid-range at $9,800. Ball striking should be very good. He ranks 11th in the field in good drives again and 18th in approach. Those numbers hold up well when you adjust for field strength too. If you go to the true strokes gain stuff over at Data Golf, the problem for Mito is the putting, and that's probably not going to go away. He's 99th in putting the past 100 rounds. He is 47th in birdies or better gained as a result of that. It does help that he's 98, so we're not going to get perfection anywhere, but I think that Mito is good enough to be in play this week despite the putting, where you got a Mito Pereira at $9,800.
So he's one of the best plays in the upper nines, but not enough for me to get there. I don't like that range. I would rather bump
Basically,
down
you'd
to
rather
Henley
bump up to the other guys in the 10K range.
and bump down to Henley and maybe someone else if I had to, such as
who would that be?
Bradley.
Oh wow, crazy!
Keegan Bradley, 9,600 is his salary. The irons are still really good for him. 97th percentile over the past year, 95th percentile in adjusted tee to green play over the past year. I kind of have like this weird thing where I'm trying to go after a little bit of the weaker putters, like Bradley, Sergio, Grilo, just because it's past Palom. Hope that maybe that helps in their favor. 15th here in 2016, 32nd last year. I kind of had to pick some golfers in the mid range just because of the nature of how we cover stuff. So I think Bradley is in play though.
I think he is too. No interest in Joaquin Neiman at $9,800. I just like Henley and guys like that, and Sergio more.
I have Neiman as a potential win bet.
Oh, okay.
But as far as like overall fit and like again the sort of baseline expectations, I would rather save some salary. But I think Neiman still has the juice to the win juice.
The win juice, yes. Okay.
The juice to win.
Juice to win, squeeze from his avocados, fresh for his abs. Okay. Charlie Hoffman, $9,200, my second mid-salary guy. No way to save some salary here. The good drive numbers are not necessarily stellar. He's not great there, but the rest of his game is very good. Hoffman is 21st in approach, 29th in putting, 9th in birdies or better gained, and it's not like he's super erratic from a driving perspective. He's 104th in accuracy, but he's 64th in good drives gained. That could lead to some rough patches, but I'm fine with that for $9,200. What are your thoughts here on Charlie Hoffman?
I like Hoffman. I've liked Hoffman for a bit now. Probably second to Grilo, above 9,000 in the low 9,000 range, but definitely very much in play. One of my others to consider for this week.
Okay, let's move down to the value range. You're talking about the Streel boy, Kevin Strowman, $8,700. What you seeing there?
So definitely more the Streel man than the Streel boy this week. Kevin Strowman's making cuts, but has no top 30 finishes in his past 5 results, which helps keep the salary down. It's whenever the numbers, the numbers sort of all click and we get high-end finishes that we see salaries increase, but we're having kind of the good underlying data with the weaker finishes. He's finished 32nd, cut, and 20th and 4th here the past 5 years. So he's got some course form to go off of. Strowman actually rates out in the 94th percentile in long-term adjusted form relative to this field, despite his sub $9,000 salary. Hits a bunch of fairways. I have him in the 94th percentile over the past 50 rounds. He stripes his irons. He's in the 88th percentile in my long-term adjusted strokes gain approach numbers, which adjust for field strength and recency over the past year, which you like to see. And Strowman, I think just as a standout play below 9,000.
I agree. I like him always. I think Kevin Strowman's great. So I think he's in play. I think that, so looking at my hypothetical lineup that I've been tinkering with here throughout the stream, guys I would consider as a way to get up to Abraham Answer plus Victor Hovland. I'm probably going to need 3 guys in this range. I think Strowman's very okay to be one of those guys. Whether it be a cash game or tournament, I think I'm actually okay with him for either. The guy like potentially more so for cash games, but really do like for cash games. Also okay with him for tournaments is Ian Poulter. Again, not my guy. Let's not do that. But he does have some key things he like. He makes birdies. Poulter is 12th in birdies or better game the past 50 rounds. That's likely due to the very good putting, but the birdie number should also get a boost on a non-distance course. That's good for Poulter as well. He ranks 5th in the field in true strokes gained the past 6 months, which surprised me, shocked me, I would say, honestly, how high he is there. He's not going to win the event because I don't think he has that upside necessarily, but I'm very okay with taking a shot at win equity here in order to gain win equity elsewhere while getting some safety here as well. So I like Poulter a lot. I think that there is upside here. What are your thoughts on Ian Poulter this week?
I think he does have win equity.
Oh.
I think that there's enough with his form to say that he's 2.1% likely to win.
2.1% at 90 to 1?
I'm at 80 to 1 now, but
80 to 1?
Yeah, I mean, my stuff accounts for like recency. And that is.
Are we betting Ian Poulter this week?
I'm considering it. Much more likely I'd settle for a top 10, but
I hate top 10 bets.
Why?
They get juiced up so much because they know you're going there because you can't find value in the outright market. It's like, oh, they don't want to bet the outrights. They're going to pivot to the top 10 market, and we're just going to juice the daylights out of it, and I hate it.
But I don't do that. I still got to see the value on the top 10 number.
Yeah, I know that, but I very rarely see it with my NASCAR stuff because they just torch the numbers all to heck, and it kills everything. Like, I've found value in the top 10 market. I mean, it's like twice a race maybe where I see something I actually like there, and it's really annoying. Yeah. I like those 2 numbers that I find, but like, it's annoying to have 2 out of a field of 40.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of matchup bets either.
I'm okay with matchup bets for NASCAR, but they're usually like minus 115. It's pretty annoying, but you can usually get some pretty bad ones, which is good. What are you seeing for your other value play this week?
It's going to be Ches, 7,600. Leads the field in fairways gained over the past 50 rounds. It's just a course where you play Ches. You don't really play him at other courses, so that helps. He has some of the best form at this course anyway. Missed the cut last year, but had been top 26 in 4 straight years entering, including a 14th in 2017 and a 4th in 2016. So basically just someone who can hit fairways and is undersalaried because of all of the fields he's been playing in. So I'm good with Ches this week.
Are you using him in tournaments too, or exclusively in cash games?
I use him in tournaments.
Okay, I think that makes sense too. I think that Reeve is like the one guy below 86, wherever Shank is. He's the one guy below Shank I feel really good about for this week. I would be okay with Ches as well. My second low salary guy is HV3, Harold Varner III. He talked about the putting and his form before, and those are the key selling points here. It's helped make Varner a pretty steady asset for DFS. He has not finished worse than 32nd in his past 6 events, and he has 5 top 16s in that time. Now, that's a floor-based recommendation. We don't like those. Those are bad. Floor is bad. Don't care about floor. But it also shows that he has access to a ceiling because he has gained at least 2.4 strokes in approach in 6 of the past 7 events and 7 of the past 9 measured events. Varner's $8,800. I feel good about his floor making the cut, but more importantly, he has done enough to convince me he has a path to upside. So I think that HV3, a good option here. I think that Strowman, Poulter, HV3, that trio is one route to saving salary or using one of Reeve. I think both those routes to giving yourself salary flexibility elsewhere are really good options this week, and I'm okay with either, personally. Any final thoughts for you in the value tier?
I like Ryan Moore as well at 78, and I like Joel Damon at 83. So it's not just Reeve. I can go pretty low. I can go lower than the upper 8s, but I like the upper 8s a little bit more. But this thing's kind of wide open, and like I said before, you can kind of pivot at any salary tier this week.
Yeah, I think so as well. So let's finish up here with our win picks for the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba based on the odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Brandon, what is standing out to you right now?
I still kind of have like value on answer,
Okay.
but I don't really want to go at 15 to 1.
Uh-huh.
But I might. I might. No, I'll go Hovland back to back, 19 to 1.
Okay. So you've got Hoffman at 19 to 1. I think that number is pretty enticing as well.
I'm gonna pick my second to buy you some time.
Sure, go ahead.
It's between Brendan Todd at 75 and Russell Henley at 42, and I'm much more likely to go with Russell Henley at 42.
Okay.
So I'll take Russell Henley at 42 to 1.
Okay. You may do that. I'm actually like kind of into a guy we didn't discuss because his salary's kind of high, but I don't hate Shane Lowry at 36 to 1. It's like a win bet.
Okay.
I don't like him more than like Wise, but like Wise's odds are shorter. Wise is 32, whereas Lowry's 36. And that's kind of a decent difference to me. So I kind of think that Shane Lowry's not a bad win bet, and I kind of want to go there. I'm gonna go with Shane Lowry.
I have him 11th this week in just overall like form plus stats. So,
but no interest for DFS, right?
No, I'd prefer other plays.
Okay, I agree with that as well. So I'm gonna go with Shane Lowry for one. For the second one, kind of think Scotty Scheffler's undervalued at 32 to 1. It's a pretty long number for a guy that makes that many birdies and has good ball striking. So I'm going to go with Shane Lowry and Scotty Scheffler. Lowry 36, Scheffler 32. And you went with Henley and Answer, correct?
Henley and Hovland.
Okay, I did not listen clearly. I was too busy trying to find mine.
I know. I got you.
Henley and Hovland, H&H, going for you. Scheffler and Lowry going for me. We'll see who comes out on top for this week at El Camaleon. That is all that we have here for today on the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast. Brandon, any final thoughts for you now that we've discussed this field before we send off the good people to fill out their lineups?
I still feel good. I thought I was going to have a hard time saying not to play Abe Answer in tournaments, but I think there are plenty of ways to go. So again, he's locked in for our head-to-head.
Yes.
But I don't think I'll play him in tournaments and just hope for like a 15th.
Yeah, I think that that's the key thing. That's the key decision point this week is whether you use Answer or not. And if you do use him, how do you find ways to be different? Do you go up to JT for your second option at 12,000 to take advantage of the fact that people won't be there? Do you leave salary? I mean, like, I don't think leaving salary on the table is the answer here, but like, you know.
So you play Answer, you plug them in first. You have 97.20 left. One way you could do things is play all those dudes in the 9 to 10.5 range we were talking, or 10.6, and you Answer's like your lone stud, because if you're playing Abe Answer, you're basically assuming he's going to win. A lot of that, let's call it the big like third tier or whatever, those guys they have win equity. So you can build an Answer plus extremely balanced lineup and like all 6 of your golfers. That's probably the best way to differentiate if you ask me.
I think that actually does work too. So whether you're doing that or anything else, just like if you're using Answer, which is totally fine. You can use Answer. He's a very good golfer. But just ask yourself, how do I make this lineup different from the other 40% of lineups that have Abraham Answer in them, and then go from there. Okay, that is all that we have here for today. Once again, though, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, make sure you leave a rating and review because it does help us out a bunch. We appreciate those of you who have done so already. A lot of stuff here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed: NFL, PGA, NASCAR, NBA, NHL, all right here. Same place, same time. We'll be back on YouTube at 10 a.m. on Thursday for the NFL Week 9 preview podcast, 10 a.m. on the FanDuel YouTube page. Also, we have daily Q&As on the FanDuel YouTube page as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Grillo13, GDULA13.
And I'm at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your lineups for the Worldwide Technology Championship Mayakoba. Final time saying that. Thank goodness. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.